Okay. I have my notes.
Okay, great. We'll get started here. Hi, I'm Kelsey Lynn Mayo. I'm the exhibition manager here at View Arts Center. I'm happy to be joined by Jane Bruce to talk about Breaking Boundaries, Contemporary Voices in Glass. Jane's coming from New York live right now, and Travis, our marketing manager and also tech guru, is in the other room filming for us here at View. So I'll hand it over to you, Jane.
Thank you. Do we see who's online, or
Yeah, I can see a couple of people, yeah.
could you put it up so I could see it?
It's down on the bottom. You should be able to click it too, where it says participants.
Sorry. Yes. Oh, I clicked and nothing's happening. Nope, nothing's happening. 3 attendees, no. I just would like to see some
Yep.
faces.
And then you could click the attendees and it will pop up who's on there.
Ah, okay. We only have 3. Oh, good. And how do I get their photos up?
That's not an option.
Oh, okay. I thought it was like regular view where everyone is on a grid.
No, no,
Oh,
this is a
okay.
webinar. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, it's weird talking to Aula, Sebastian, and William, Bill, without seeing you guys. And also Gloria. Welcome to my talk on the exhibition Breaking Boundaries. The exhibition features work by a diverse group of contemporary artists selected for their skillful mastery of the medium and diversity of ideas that span and expands upon traditional glass techniques. With these artists, glass moves beyond the decorative to explore and reflect 21st century issues, which is what the aim of the exhibition is to really rethink tradition. The artists I chose, their work encompasses a respect, even reverence for these traditions, while simultaneously pushing the boundaries of the medium through innovative techniques and contemporary content. In the hands of this group of artists, glass, I hope, shows you how it can move beyond the decorative to explore and reflect 21st century issues, including gender, identity, race, contemporary culture, and environmental degradation. We're going to start in the gallery with looking at Susan and Adam's work. Susan wrote, we have a responsibility as craft people and creative individuals to preserve the history and practice of craft. As stewards of our glass-blowing craft, we are in a unique position to inspire and be inspired to perpetually learn and share our knowledge and to cultivate meaningful collaborations. Collective and simultaneous engagement with people, process, and our environment embody the very essence of glass. What you're looking at is an amazing stoppered bottle. Susan is a first generation American Croatian of Croatian descent. And with the glass, she is making a connection to her heritage. She has always been interested in various ways native handicrafts of her family's homeland, Croatia. And through recent research and exploration, Susan has become even more interested in patterns and symbols, preserving works of architecture, textiles, and other decorative and utilitarian objects. In collaboration with Adam Holsinger, who is a superb glassblower in the Venetian style, Susan has connected these or translated some of these Croatian themes through the use of hand-blown glass. They are referencing Croatian patterns, Croatian forms, but with extraordinary Venetian techniques. Adam, who is a very good glassblower, extremely good glassblower, said he was even challenged to make these pieces. Moving on from Susan and Adam, we go to River Valdez, who works in a very different way. Adam is a glassblower and River is actually a flame worker. But as a flame worker, he is pushing scale and materiality through using glass and ceramics. There's a little ceramic table that he made in this gallery with his candle holder on top of it. Working on a grand scale are intrinsic to his practice, whether shaping clay pieces or navigating the complexities of large-scale flame-worked glass. He is a good example of pushing boundaries in both techniques, flame working and clay. Simplicity has become paramount in his pieces, and he tries to imbue the pieces with a sense of effortless grace, defying gravity, and inviting contemplation of spatial harmony. Next, across the wall from River, and if anyone has any questions, please ask when you have them, rather than waiting for the end. We are just going over River's candle holder and his little ceramic table. So next to River is Esteban Salazar and a set of 8 sweetmeat glasses. Esteban loves glass blowing, so we've gone back to glass blowing from flame working. And for those that don't know, flame working is manipulating usually borosilicate glass on an open flame. You've probably often seen it at the beach, at the seaside, making glass animals, or at the fair, that sort of thing. That is flame working. Esteban started making these cups as an exercise in technique and looking at tradition and reinterpreting sweetmeat cups from the 18th and 19th century. For him, this was really a technical exercise on many levels, but also a way to produce oversized goblets, which, as I said, reinterprets sweetmeats from the 17th and 18th century. Across the gallery from Esteban is Grace Whiteside with sticky glass. Ooh, going around, getting dizzy. Grace is an interdisciplinary artist, glass and performance, and her work draws from their experience of generalized dissatisfaction with life and physical participation in reality television shows such as Salvage, Dogs, and she was in the 4th series of Blown Away, the glass blowing competition. These forms pull from the natural behavior of glass in its fluid, molten state. Glass is very binary. It can be hot, it can be cold, it can be fluid, extremely fluid and soft, and it can be hard and very rigid. As well as that, fluid molten state and its duality, it's reflecting the queerness of the material's properties. Each of the objects that she's made, these goblets and cups and vase, aims to cultivate an elevated experience, taking the mundane out of eating and drinking by encouraging a performative interaction. These are large goblets. They're probably about 8-9 inches tall. They're also quite heavy. She calls them deflated objects, which is a sort of state between being fully blown and beginning to collapse. So moving on from Grace, in the middle of the gallery, we have Dinnerware by Jessie Moore. And Jessie is a very good glassblower with a passion for clean, simple shapes and bright colors. Her work aims to add a pop of color to any space. And in doing so, she reinterprets what dinnerware can be. What we see before us are a snack plate, which is the little plate, and then a dinner plate with a hot fused little cup by the side, so it could be used for chips and dip. And also we see a butter dish where it's traditional, based on a French traditional butter dish, where the butter is put into the yellow base and then the top is put over it. And in the base, under the butter, is water. She has also got a traditional salt cellar on the table in mauve and blue, in mauve. And again, the lid comes off, you put the salt in. And then she has goblets as well. So if you're bored with your dinnerware, have some fun with it, and dinner plates and snack plates and goblets. So moving on from Grace, from Jessie, we move to a non-functional object. This is Jamie Harris's slab. Jamie's primary method is glass blowing, but focused on a painterly perspective. He's trying to do a very painterly, light infused sculpture. His work is about capturing the color, light, and most importantly, the fluid movement of the glass blowing process, exploring the uses and he explores the use of a fairly innovative technique, which is blowing the objects or making them solid through the hot shot, and then putting them all together in a kiln and allowing them to melt and fuse together to create these solid glass sculptures. Finally, in the first gallery, we move to Erica Rosenfeld. And we move totally away from objects. Erica's cloud at the top is made of blown and fragmented bubbles that she then pins together to make these quite extraordinary clouds. It is about 3.5 feet across. Below that are 3 of her small found object pieces. She uses glass, found objects, mixed media to create sculptures, usually for the wall. Sometimes they are freestanding. She's community centric, while embracing the cultural histories of glassmaking, crafting, and for Erica, also cooking. She is a very good cook, and she belongs to a performance group called Burnt Ashfeld, who actually cook a dinner in the hot shop. Erica's work really celebrates community-centric, obsessive, labor-intensive ritual. Her art investigates themes of mass culture, ordering, conformity, nostalgia, fear, and temporariness. Also in these pieces, the birds are vintage Christmas decorations from Ukraine. Has anyone any questions before we move to the next gallery? No? Okay, so moving on to the next gallery, we see Marzena's work. Marzena is a Polish artist. These pieces are pretty difficult to see. They are beautifully slumped glass pieces, 2 pieces of glass that have been slumped, and they're really, for Marzena, they show emotions using the behavior of glass to memorize places. One is clear with an iridized surface, and the other one is gray. I think of them as this one is very joyful, and the other one is a little bit not so joyful. As I say, they are a little bit difficult to see, especially in filming. She likes to obscure them slightly by using a gray glass box that goes over them, and which is actually part of the piece. Moving on from Marzena, we go to Judith Schechter. Judith is an internationally renowned stained glass artist. She pulls very much from traditional stained glass techniques, the leading, the painting, the taking away one side of glass called flash glass, which is a clear glass that has coating a skin of glass or a skin of color on one side, and she will grind it away in an extremely labor-intensive process to create these quite extraordinary light boxes. She also likes to use the beauty of glass as a counterpoint to difficult and ugly subjects. None of her light boxes are easy. The figures are always very similar, always slightly look depressed. But she counterbalances that with these extraordinary nature designs. And a lot of the work, a lot of the nature designs comes from doodles. She is an amazing doodler. She doodles a lot. So it's a nice counterpoint between beauty and difficulty. They're mounted into a light box, which goes onto the wall. Since the 1970s, stained glass sort of escaped architecture and became something in its own right, where often it would be hung on a wall or in front of a window. So moving on from Judith, we go to Susan Cox. Oh, we forgot about Judith's drawings. Along with her stained glass, Judith also draws, but she draws what she calls she's drawing with Photoshop. Again, very labor intensive, but beautiful drawings. So these are all created in Photoshop and then printed out. So next to Judith, in what I call our sort of nature environmental selection or corner of the gallery, is Susan Cox. Susan, when she was growing up, moved frequently to different states. And there weren't houses. Apparently, she thought there weren't houses that were special, but there were landscapes. She also was trained as an architect and practiced as an architect for many years. Responding to the landscape was almost foremost in her practice. Now she has turned to glass, and her work, she finds, is still about landscapes. She draws inspiration from and finds it necessary to either be in nature or think about and design work about being in nature. So what we have here is her walk through a forest. And she also views her pieces as creating calm, transporting one to an imagined natural setting away from the noise and chaos of life. While I can't bring the forest to the gallery, I can bring memories and mementos offering respect for the moment. On an intimate scale, she seeks to recreate glimpses of the experience of tarrying in the woods. So a lot of these pieces are lost wax castings, which means that she takes real bark, real tree, and in fact, what we're looking at now is a slice on the bottom is a slice from a real tree. And then on the top is a casting. She took a mold from the tree slice, cast wax, put the wax in a mold, melted it out, and made a glass tree slice. So a lot of these pieces are taken from found objects from nature. So moving on from Susan, opposite Susan in the environmental section is Camilla Szeszky. Camilla is a Hungarian architect that lives in New York. And she creates spaces and objects that are a bridge between people and nature. She works across the scale of architecture, installations, and objects. What you see before you is glass and mycelium. Mycelium is the thread-like structure found in fungi, and it's living. I know over the few days we were installing the show, the pieces changed, the colors changed. There is a glass strata in Wanderer. This ball is called Wanderer, and the mycelium has grown itself around it to form this ball, but it will change over time. So her designs engage natural process, including the movement of air, growth, evaporation, vitrification, or the decay and transformation of material waste. This one is about 5 feet high. And off the top of my head, I can't remember the title. What I find interesting about Camilla's work is that instead of being the form giver, which most of us are, to an object or the follower of a function, her craft gives up part of the control to co-create with nature. The juxtaposition of two methods of making, crafting with glass and cultivating with mycelium, invites contemplation on the dichotomy between living and non-living matter. And these are large pieces. And again, the mycelium block is strong enough to hold up the very large, heavy piece of cast glass, and the mycelium is beginning to grow inside the cavities of the cast glass.
The tall piece, Jane, is called living, non-living.
Oh, okay. So the tall piece is called living, non-living. Thank you, Kelsey.
Yeah.
Across from Camilla is Matthew Soes, and we're moving away from the little nature corner, or my nature corner. Matt is known primarily for his inventive processes and innovative use of glass to explore the intersection of material aesthetics and the poetic. His work hovers at the intersection of art, design, and craft, and explores how the process of making affects our built world and shapes our ideas of self and purpose. These pieces are technically absolutely extraordinary. What Matthew does is he will fuse sheets of glass together with a cavity in them, and then he will heat them up and he will blow them up with air. So often they look like blown up rubber toys or something you would take to the swimming pool to float on. I find them really quite extraordinary. He's really pushing the boundaries between fusing and blowing glass to make these really quite extraordinary and often extremely beautiful objects. He's really the child of two ideas. The first is the unconstructed artisanship tradition in which he was raised. The second is the church of the ecstatic blue-collar rock and roll anarchy for which he volunteered. To make these pieces, you have to be a bit of an anarchist. I've watched him making them. It is amazing. This is the territory that excites him, lying between the sensitive and considered restraint of learned technique and the manic populist energy of the rock-throwing iconoclast. The opposing pools of intellect and emotion maintain a tense center that lives and vibrates with this energy, and I think it lives and vibrates through his work as well. Moving on from Matt across the way is Aula Mateo. With these pieces, Aula has gone on quite a journey. Aula is a non-binary artist, and these pair of sculptures represent their current state and their imagined state and the weight they carry by existing in their current body. The sculpture of their current body, which is the one with the heart, carries a great deal of the presumed femininity, which is not who they are. On the other hand, the other sculpture is of their imagined body, which displays the masculine aspects of top surgery juxtaposed with the femininity of beading, culminating in a piece that sits outside of the gender binary. Their pieces blurs the lines and queers the edges. I find these pieces extremely brave, and I was extremely happy when they accepted my invitation to be in the show. Their goal is to challenge oppressive definitions of gender and identity while also challenging the public's perception of the body. And I believe in these pieces, they actually attain their aims. Across the way from Aula is something totally different. This is David Schnackle's work. Some of his video, which is actually taken of glasses melting in a kiln, and then he's done the reverse, so they pop back on up again. David's work bridges his interest in wordplay, time, and experimental craft processes. The sequencing of skill acquisition are subverted in an experimental effort to find parallels and a new kind of artistry. We're now looking at the collapsed goblet, that one of which is in one of the videos. A new kind of mastery, he writes, one in the service of breaking a glass object down as thoughtfully and as attentively as it was built up, and correspondence between the artist and an unknown colleague reflect on the interdisciplinary between notions of control and instance of chance. A lot of David's work is very much exploring control and surprises or chance. As we saw in his videos, the goblet starts off perfectly straight, and the way it falls is by chance. And I actually love these videos because when the goblets go backwards and become whole again, it's like they are breathing. And glass blowing is all about breath, and to see the glass sort of breathing on its own in a kiln is pretty extraordinary. Finally, we move across to William Kuig. And again, something quite different for a glass show. Before we go to Bill, can we just stop at Esteban for a moment, to the next to Bill on the left? Esteban, as we saw Esteban's sweetmeat cups, but Esteban has a very diverse practice. These are skulls that he has formed, hot worked in the glass hot shop, and they will eventually be perfume bottles. He's interested in remains of who we are. He also, a short while ago, he took a perfume class, and he handcrafted perfumes for this exhibition, and found bottles online, perfume bottles, and then decorated the perfume bottles. He also made a sconce for the wall with the skull that we will see him making in Bill's animation in a moment. So if we can now move to Bill's work. Bill Kuig, oh, there is Esteban working on the skull that you just saw in the sconce. And now you see it in Lego, which I think is extraordinary. Bill was introduced to glass after seeing a number of demonstrations in various locales as he backpacked around the world after college in the mid-90s. Upon returning to New York, he discovered urban glass and was immediately drawn to the fluidity and physicality of glass blowing. It allowed him to draw on the eye-hand coordination and affinity he had for teamwork, and that he had developed growing up and playing sports in Connecticut. He's also interested in robots. And in the animation that you're seeing, it's one of a set of 50 unique handmade stop motion animations. They're homages celebrating not only the art of glassmaking, but also the thriving community of artists and makers of downtown Brooklyn's urban glass. This is actually our not quite, sort of looks like Urban Glass's hot shop, or part of it anyway. So these animations were produced from Bill Coe's Battery Park house on his Samsung Galaxy phone with the occasional assistance from his daughter. They were released daily in the hopes of keeping Bill's network of friends and glassmakers far and wide connected during COVID, during the shutdown. During the spring of 2020, when no one could go anywhere or see anyone, what happened was the series subsequently resonated with a much wider audience, inspired additional projects, and was recently juried into the acclaimed New Glass Review published by the Corning Glass Museum. What we're looking at in the animation, can we go back, Travis, please, to the animation? This is episode 47, called The Skull, and it portrays Esteban as he deftly hand sculpts a skull out of white glass. And the video, which you can't hear, is complemented by a score by the renowned Japanese composer Zawi, who actually got in touch with Bill after seeing them and asked him if he could compose for the animations. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is about it. Do we have questions, comments? Would you like to go back and see anything else? Kelsey, would you like to see anything else?
I mean, I am seeing it every day, but
That's true. Have you
I
any questions about any of the work?
I guess I just was wondering, when you were thinking about different artists to invite, did you want to cover every medium in glass? Was that important? As there is some things missing, like neon, or is it more important to show like the functionality versus the growth into more conceptual pieces?
I think probably a bit of both. I purposely left out neon because View had just had a neon exhibition, as you know, and there wasn't, to be honest, on many levels, I know a lot about neon, but I don't know a lot of the current artists about neon. And the artist I would have wanted, it was too convoluted to get him to make a piece to show. And another major consideration was that View just had a complete neon show. You know, it had a light show, it had a neon show.
Yeah, that was the show Ali Feeney and I curated together.
Yeah. Your other question, I wanted the exhibition, when you come in from the beginning where we started, I wanted it to be a journey through probably functional objects, but functional objects that hopefully one had probably never seen before, like Grace's deflated goblets, Susan and Adam's stoppered bottles. And then I wanted it to move into more not conceptual. I actually have a hard time with that word, but I wanted it to move, because I think everything is an idea. I wanted it to move away from function into other types of objects, installations, into artists like David Schnuckel, who really is pushing the boundaries of what could be considered glass art. And I also wanted to show as many techniques as possible. Neon was, I think, about the only one we left out, except maybe fusing. We've got slumping, but we haven't actually got fusing. I also wanted artists that were exploring sort of not in a way current issues that were not necessarily glass related, like Camilla's mycelium and glass and Aula's sculptures about their own body. So yes, there is a definite thread that goes through it, that you start with fairly traditional looking objects, but not that traditional, and then you move in and come round and you end up with David and Bill, who are really pushing glass in a very interesting and thoughtful way with the Legos and I love the fact that the Legos were done during COVID lockdown in 2020, and it was a way of keeping the community alive. And all the Legos are all the different artists that work at Urban Glass doing their thing in the hot shop. And I love that aspect of community in Bill's work. And I also love his robots, so, you know, what's not to love? I was going to have another piece of stained glass, as you know, but it broke in shipping, which was a real shame. But I definitely wanted Judith, because her work is extraordinary as a stained glass artist. I actually barely think of it as stained glass. Sometimes to me, it's almost more like painting. And I like what Camilla is doing with mycelium. I think it's extremely interesting. I think it's very wacky, but I think it's really pretty amazing, actually. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, you just spoke about the piece breaking as well. Someone actually asked how all this art was transported to view, and they said it looks so fragile. And said awesome exhibit and explanations. And for the most part, most of it was all in one truck, but some of it was shipped here separately or dropped off separately.
Yeah.
I'm sure Jane can speak to this, but sometimes the best way to get your glasswork somewhere is doing it yourself.
Yes. Actually, glass, if it's packed extremely well, isn't as fragile as one thinks. I always ship my work UPS, and the rule about UPS, your box has to drop 3 feet. And the only time I ever had work broken was when the gallery didn't pack it properly and shipped it back to me, which was extremely annoying. No, we actually, because a lot of the artists are New York based, we actually all threw in, there is some pieces of mine just outside the exhibition, and we all threw in some money and we rented a U-Haul, and Esteban kindly drove it up and drove it back, and we filled it with all the work. And then Matt Sos, his work was shipped from Seattle. Judith came from Judith was a drop-off from another gallery. Margena's was shipped from Poland, in fact. And in fact, when we received it, you probably could have dropped a bomb on the packing and it wouldn't have broken the glass.
A lot of these artists were very good at doing cavity packing and making sure the foam fits exactly around the piece.
You know, it's expensive to blow glass. It's expensive to cast glass. So you always make damn sure that your packing is as good as you can possibly make it. Does anyone else have any questions? No one? Or did anyone put anything in the chat?
We have one other comment saying, congratulations, the show is wonderful and diverse. Thank you for sharing this evening.
Oh, that's very nice. Sebastian, I'm so sorry your piece broke. And Kevin, yes, it is
Yep, we
fragile,
answered that.
but glass can be also. This piece is extremely fragile. This would be packed beautifully, I'm sure. Whereas Grace's deflated goblets, they're so heavy and clunky that they would not have to be quite as packed, quite as fastidiously as Susan's stoppered bottles. And obviously they would be packed separately, the stoppers would come out.
Great. I think that seems like all the questions. Thank you, Travis, in the gallery, taking us on this tour.
Yes, thank you, Travis. So
Uh,
no more questions?
I don't see any more. Nope.
Okay, the show is on until the end of July, and the Corning Hot Shop will be up. What date, Kelsey?
Starting next week.
Great. So if
Yeah.
anyone wants to take a trip to Old Forge in the Adirondacks, next week would be a great time to do it.
Yes, we look forward. There's a lot of programming. We have classes. Susan Cox is teaching a class coming up.
Great.
And I'm also teaching a glass class as well.
Yeah,
And then we have a stained glass class by Mary Pockentowski, who isn't in the exhibit, but is a local stained glass artist.
good.
So we look forward to people learning a bit about how things are made too.
And I would love to be there, but I'm not allowed to drive for at least another 3-4 weeks due to my knee.
Yeah. And we'll miss you and we wish you could have taught a
Yeah.
class, but another
Okay.
time.
Another time, I hope. Okay. So I just yep.
Yep,
Oh,
that's it.
Matt
Thank
joined.
you, everyone.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Kelsey.
Thank you, Jane. Bye.
Oh, just one question.
Mhm.
When will this be up on Views YouTube?
We usually try to get to it the next day or
Oh, really?
day
Great.
after. Yep.
Yeah, because Susan was asking, and also Devera, who's a curator, was asking, a friend of mine, because they
Great.
couldn't,
Yeah. We try to
they,
get to it as quick as possible.
okay, thanks.
Yep.
I told them next week, so
Great.
you
Okay.
give you a
Bye-bye.
bit of break. Bye.